GloRilla was living her dream, center stage at the WNBA All-Star Game, completely unaware that back home, her world was about to be shattered. 3 masked intruders stormed her house, terrorizing her family. But here's where the story flips. Instead of chasing the armed burglars, police zeroed in on something else: the smell of weed. Hours later, GloRilla, the victim, was the only one facing felony charges. How does that even happen? Tonight, we break down the shocking twist that turned a crime victim into the prime suspect. GloRilla's drug arrest has been public knowledge for some time, but her recent courtroom demeanor might have made things worse. Reports say she showed up acting completely nonchalant, which didn't sit well with the judge, who quickly grew frustrated as tensions escalated. Could this careless attitude land her behind bars? Stay tuned, we're breaking it all down. Meanwhile, on the night of Saturday, July 19, 2025, while most people were chilling at home or hanging out nearby, GloRilla was lighting up the stage in Indianapolis, performing at the WNBA All-Star Game halftime show alongside Let Her Cook, Typa, and TGI. She was living her best life, shining on one of the biggest stages in women's sports, completely unaware that back home in Georgia, her world was about to be shaken. Around 1:30 a.m., while Glo was likely celebrating or heading back to her hotel, 3 masked intruders decided to storm her home in St. Location missing. This all went down in the Marlow subdivision of Forsyth County, Georgia. And don't get it twisted, this wasn't some random smash and grab by desperate crackheads hoping to make a quick buck. No, this was a cold, calculated hit. Glo's legal team insists these lowlifes probably knew she wasn't even home. But here's where the story gets real intense. Glo wasn't alone. Her family was there, and they were left shaken and traumatized by these filthy burglars who violated their sanctuary. Imagine being in someone else's home, thinking you're safe, then suddenly hearing glass break and footsteps where they don't belong. This wasn't some amateur hour grab-and-go for a TV, it was a precise, targeted strike. The suspects went straight for high-value jewelry before making their escape, showing they knew exactly what they were after and where to find it. That kind of inside knowledge raises serious questions. Who's out here leaking Glo's secrets, her lifestyle, her prized jewels, and most importantly, when the house would be empty? This is where the story takes a serious turn. Someone inside the house was armed and fired shots at the intruders, sending them scattering like cockroaches when the lights flick on. Luckily, no one was injured, not the family defending their home, nor the suspects, who probably deserved it. This shows that whoever was holding down the spot wasn't out to harm anyone but was simply protecting their family and property, exactly as anyone would. Naturally, the family called the police, doing the right thing after surviving a violent home invasion. Deputies arrived, recognizing the gravity of the situation since shots were fired, and major crimes detectives along with the crime scene unit stepped in to gather evidence. It looked like the authorities were taking the felony seriously until something suspicious happened that completely flipped the case on its head. While investigating, deputies suddenly claimed they caught a strong whiff of loud, that unmistakable scent linked to illegal narcotics. Now, picture this. These officers arrived to handle a violent, armed burglary, shots fired, property stolen, dangerous criminals on the loose. Yet instead of zeroing in on the armed intruders, they shifted their attention to the smell of weed. They secured a search warrant, and authorities uncovered what they called a significant stash of marijuana hidden in a bedroom closet. That's when the leaner Regional Drug Task Force stepped in. More search warrants were issued, and extra resources were poured into a drug bust stall while the real criminals who terrorized this family slipped further away with every minute. When the warrant was executed, about 2 pounds of loud and some THC wax were reportedly found in the master bedroom closet, along with an unspecified schedule-controlled substance. Here's the kicker that'll have you ready to flip tables. GloRilla was hundreds of miles away, lighting up the stage at a nationally televised sporting event. With thousands of witnesses and cameras capturing every moment, she had the most airtight alibi anyone could ever hope for. And yet, somehow GloRilla ended up as the only person facing charges in this entire tangled mess. The weed and other substances were allegedly just sitting out in plain view. Immediately sparks some uncomfortable questions. If everything was truly that visible, why didn't the people staying in the house, people who were supposedly looking out for Glo's safety and reputation, handle it before calling the police? Or better yet, why didn't they clean up the place the moment the burglars fled, before law enforcement ever stepped through the door? Here's a hard truth straight from the streets. The people you trust can either protect you or leave you exposed, and too often, You don't find out which until it's far too late. Based on what they discovered during the burglary investigation, authorities went ahead and issued arrest warrants. That's when the story took its most twisted turn. The victim of a violent home invasion, who wasn't even in the same state when it happened, was now staring down serious felony charges that could put her behind bars for years. Next, we need to unpack how GLO's legal team came swinging, the public outrage that erupted, and the troubling blueprint of how the system really works when it comes to our community. But before we go any further, we need to walk through exactly what went down the moment GloRilla learned she was officially wanted by the authorities and how her next move poured gasoline on the already raging fire around celebrity justice in America. They really did GLO dirty with these charges. This is the sharp left turn in the story, and you'll want to catch every detail, because it's the key to understanding just how absurd the system can be when it decides to make an example out of one of our own. What happened next was pure controversy, and the way the narrative flipped shows just how quickly they can turn the tables faster than you can say. Free my homie. GloRilla didn't hide, didn't dodge, didn't try to buy time. Instead, she kept it real, walking into Forsyth County Jail on Tuesday, July 22, 2025, turning herself in right after arrest warrants dropped over the drugs allegedly found during that burglary investigation. Let that sink in. She could have stalled extradition, unleashed an army of expensive lawyers to slow the process, or cut a quiet backroom deal to bury the mess. But she didn't. She faced it head-on, chest out, unshaken. And make no mistake, these charges weren't light. They slapped her with 2 heavyweight felony counts under Georgia law: felony possession of marijuana for having more than an ounce of loud and possession of a Schedule I controlled substance. In Georgia, this wasn't some minor ticket you could quietly pay and forget. It was a potential life-altering sentence. If convicted of felony marijuana possession, GloRilla faced anywhere from 1 to 10 years behind bars. The bitter irony was that the people who had actually broken into her home and terrorized her family were still free, while she was the one facing prison time for substances found during the investigation of a crime committed against her own property. She posted a $22,260 bond the same day and walked out of Forsyth County Jail. But the damage was already done. Her reputation had taken a hit. The stress was mounting, and the shadow of a felony conviction now hung over her career. Just days earlier, she'd been riding the high of a major performance, feeling unstoppable, only to be blindsided by an arrest warrant that threatened to strip away years of her life. What made it even worse was the reality that while much of the country has relaxed its stance on marijuana, Georgia remains stuck in an outdated war on drugs mindset, where cannabis is illegal except for limited medical use, and possession of more than an ounce is still a felony. This wasn't California or Colorado. This was Georgia, where old laws still have sharp teeth. But if anyone thought GLO was going to shrink into silence, they were wrong. On July 24, 2025, she took 2x and unleashed a fiery response that set the internet ablaze. My house got home invaded Saturday while I was in Indianapolis performing at the WNBA All-Star Game. Instead of focusing on catching the real suspects, they zeroed in on some cannabis, she said. So no, I wasn't busted too. My house got robbed. 3 masked intruders broke in, and I wasn't even home. Long story short, my house was invaded, and I'm the only one arrested. She carefully emphasized her presence at a nationally televised event, giving her an unshakable alibi, and used cannabis instead of weed or loud to sound more professional, likely on her legal team's advice, highlighting how absurd it was that the victim was the only one charged. But GLO didn't stop there. She turned the situation around by selling $40 merchandise featuring her mugshot, a move compared to Travis Scott's response to his legal issues. TMZ even praised how good her mugshot looked. While GLO flipped the script, her attorneys, Marissa Goldberg and Drew Finneling from the Finneling law firm, fired back with a fierce statement, essentially declaring war on the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office. The arrest sparked serious concerns, exposing just how warped law enforcement priorities have become. A legal expert weighed in, saying, "If you don't have anything to hide, you don't hide anything." So my view was she shouldn't have had the weed in her house. And obviously, there had to be enough for the smell to be overwhelming, and law enforcement, responding to protect her, had to act. But here's where GLO's legal team turned up the heat, raising alarms about police overreach that should have every American paying attention. First, GloRilla was the victim of a violent home invasion, not a suspect. Seems like common sense, but apparently some badges needed it spelled out. Second, while her family did the right thing by calling the police, officers shifted their focus to what they claimed was a small amount of marijuana. Direct contradiction to the sheriff's claim of finding a significant stash. And the most damning point, law enforcement went through the hassle of securing search and arrest warrants for Glo, who hadn't been at her home for some time, yet not a single warrant was issued for the violent burglars. Her attorneys called the whole situation utterly unbelievable and a complete waste of taxpayer dollars. They weren't just defending their client, they were calling out a system that seemed more focused on making headlines by arresting a celebrity than actually solving violent street crimes. The legal team highlighted the trauma GloRilla's family endured during the home invasion and criticized the lack of progress in catching the real suspects. Real talk. Innocent people were terrorized in their own home, had guns pointed at them, feared for their lives. Yet the perpetrators were still out there while the victim faced prosecution. But the sheriff's office refused to back down. Sheriff Ron Freeman stated, "The homeowner is a victim of a serious crime, and we are committed to bringing the suspects to justice. At the same time, we must continue to uphold and enforce the law in all aspects of this case." This statement perfectly captures the problem. They acknowledge she's a victim, yet treat her like a criminal. A legal expert explained how they justified it all. Circumstantial evidence. "If I went to bed last night and there was no snow on the ground, I woke up this morning, and there was snow on the ground. Now, that's hardly likely in Atlanta today, yet somehow, it snowed," a legal expert explained, illustrating how law enforcement justified their actions. They smelled marijuana, and that alone led to the execution of a search warrant. What did they find? Well over an ounce, enough for a felony charge. The Forsyth County Sheriff's Office confirmed the burglary investigation was still active, with detectives recovering physical and forensic evidence from the suspects. Yet, as of July 27, 2025, no arrests had been made for the actual burglary. Let me break this down. Days after the violent home invasion, despite having the full resources of the county sheriff's office, a regional drug task force, and major crimes detectives, the three burglars who left behind physical evidence were still free. Meanwhile, the victim herself was arrested within days. The streets reacted exactly as expected. Twitter exploded with criticism of the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office, with users pointing out the misplaced focus on GloRilla's drug charges instead of the unresolved burglary. One user wrote, "GloRilla said no arrests were made for the suspects who burglarized her home. But she's the one arrested for weed possession there." Forsyth police definitely did GloRilla dirty. Major outlets like the Washington Post, TMZ, Fox 5 Atlanta, WSB-TV, People, CNN, and The Guardian all covered the story, highlighting how backwards it was that GloRilla was both the victim and the one getting arrested. When this many big-name news sources run the same angle, you know the situation was seriously messed up. But let's zoom out and ask the tougher questions about who was really around her that night. Was this just bad luck? Or something more calculated? It's time to spill the real tea and face some hard truths about loyalty. Now that we've laid out the basic facts, it's time to dive into the deeper, more controversial issues that had the whole community buzzing but that the mainstream media won't touch. While everyone focused on the police was clearly foul, there's another side to this story, revealing uncomfortable realities about the streets, loyalty, and the people you surround yourself with once you make it to the top. Let me be real with y'all about the elephant in the room that everyone's dancing around but no one's brave enough to speak on directly. So how did GloRilla end up being the only one facing charges when she wasn't even in the state? The answer to that question exposes some troubling truths everyone who's ever trusted someone with their freedom, reputation, or life needs to hear. This incident sparked important conversations about systemic issues, especially how Black Americans are disproportionately targeted for marijuana offenses. While that reality is very real and part of a bigger pattern of injustice, there's something even more critical for our community to understand. The people you trust can either protect you or destroy you on, sometimes you don't realize which until it's too late. Let's break down what actually happened that night. 3 armed burglars stormed GloRilla's home, traumatizing the family members who were there. Shots were fired in defense of the property. The criminals fled. The family called the police. And here's the key detail: a significant amount of time passed between when the call was made and when law enforcement actually arrived to investigate. During that waiting period, everyone in the house knew the law was on its way. They expected questions, searches, and intense scrutiny. They understood that as the homeowner and a high-profile celebrity, GloRilla would face the greatest exposure and risk. So here's the question: if you truly cared about protecting someone who was providing for you, offering a place to stay, and whose success was likely benefiting you in countless ways, wouldn't your first move be to make sure there wasn't anything in that house that could get them locked up? This isn't about blaming the victim. GloRilla clearly endured both violent crime and police overreach, but it does shine a harsh light on the people in her inner circle and whether they really had her back when it counted most. Think about it. The weed was found in the master bedroom closet, GloRilla's private space. The people staying at her crib would have known this. They would have known anything found in her bedroom would be pinned on her, and that she faced the biggest risk. Yet somehow, that evidence stayed right where the law would find it, doing maximum damage to her life and career. And this wasn't GloRilla's first brush with Georgia law enforcement. Back in April 2024, GloRilla was arrested in Gwinnett County for DUI after making an illegal U-turn at a red light, with police claiming they smelled weed and alcohol. This prior run-in adds important context to her 2025 arrest and highlights a troubling pattern of legal issues in the same state. Now, here's where the story dives into a darker reality in the entertainment world. Many people were reminded of Juice WRLD's case, where those around him were present during his legal troubles. While the details differ, the core question remains: when someone hits celebrity status and becomes a cash cow, are the people around them truly loyal, or just there for the perks? One analyst put it bluntly: why didn't they get that stuff out of the house and protect GloRilla? Because many don't understand that snitching isn't just talking to police. The real issue is that in many celebrity circles, there's an unspoken agreement that everyone around the star profits from their success. Back in April 2024, GloRilla was arrested in Gwinnett County for DUI after making an illegal U-turn at a red light, with police claiming they smelled weed and alcohol. This prior run-in adds important context to her 2025 arrest and highlights a troubling pattern of legal issues in the same state. Now, here's where the story dives into a darker reality in the entertainment world. Many people were reminded of Juice WRLD's case, where those around him were present during his legal troubles. While the details differ, the core question remains: when someone hits celebrity status and becomes a cash cow, are the people around them truly loyal, or just there for the perks? One analyst put it bluntly: why didn't they get that stuff out of the house and protect GloRilla? Because many don't understand that snitching isn't just talking to police. The real issue is that in many celebrity circles, there's an unspoken agreement that everyone around the star profits from their success. The legal expert broke down the bigger picture. If someone charged with a crime voluntarily turns themselves in as GloRilla did, prosecutors and the DA's office will often consider reducing the charges, depending on the amount and packaging. What started as a felony could be downgraded to a misdemeanor. But of course, it all hinges on the specifics. Despite the legal chaos swirling around her, GloRilla still hit the stage at the WNBA All-Star Game just hours after the burglary, showing remarkable resilience. She was also slated to headline her first annual Glow Bash in Memphis on July 25, 2025, featuring artists like Mooney Long and Rob 49. That she managed to keep up with her professional commitments amidst this nightmare speaks volumes about her strength and professionalism. Since dropping her debut album, Glorious, in 2024, with hits like Yaglo and TGIF, she had cemented herself as one of hip-hop's brightest new stars, earning nods from legends like Rihanna and even a White House visit in March 2024. This wasn't some minor celebrity tangled in legal trouble. This was a major rising force in hip-hop facing serious stakes. If convicted on the felony marijuana possession charge, GloRilla risked 1 to 10 years behind bars in Georgia. The charge for the Schedule I controlled substance could also mean serious jail time, depending on what it was and how much was involved. Think about what that means. A woman who had fought her whole life to break free from the streets, built a thriving career through talent and grit, and was supporting her family and creating opportunities for others, suddenly faced the risk of losing it all because of substances found in her own home after she had already been the victim of a violent crime. As of the latest updates, the burglary investigation remains open, with the sheriff's office still chasing forensic leads. But no arrests have been made, fueling ongoing criticism from GloRilla's legal team and supporters. Weeks after the incident, the violent criminals who terrorized innocent people remain free while their victim faces serious felony charges. This case perfectly illustrates everything wrong with the priorities in our justice system, showing how law enforcement can lose focus on what truly matters: protecting innocent people and catching dangerous criminals, instead chasing headline-grabbing arrests to boost their stats. This situation also highlights how the people closest to celebrities can sometimes let them down when it matters most. GloRilla's response: turning her mugshot into merchandise. Speaking out boldly and hiring top-notch legal counsel shows she knows the game and how to fight back. But honestly, she shouldn't have had to battle like this in the first place. The streets are watching closely, and this case will be remembered as a powerful example of how the system can flip the script on you in a heartbeat, and why it's crucial to surround yourself with those who will truly have your back when it counts. Like this video. Click the card on your screen for more.